And in a second, Jen is the founder of Sustainable-ish, the author of 2 books. I always get this first one wrong, so I'm going to read the Sustainable-ish Living Guide and the Sustainable-ish Guide to Green Parenting. She also runs a blog and the Sustainable-ish podcast, is a public speaker, and runs the Knackered Mums Eco Club. Is that the right word? Yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, over to her with some brilliant, positive, practical steps.
Oh, unmute. Fab, thank you so much. I put myself on mute because quite rather fittingly, my kids are squawking away in the background. So apologies in advance if there's some background noise. Thank you, Kate, so much for the intro. Thank you guys for inviting me. Really impressed with everything that you guys are doing for Great Big Green Week this week. So we are here. We've got to be finished by 8, haven't we? Because I know that Pete's on with another brilliant talk at 8 about low carbon eating or the sort of impact of your diet and things on the planet. So it's going to be a bit of a whistle stop tour. We'll have the chat box there. So if you think of questions whilst I'm talking, whack them into the chat box, and I will do my very best to make sure that we've got 5-10 minutes at the end so that we can go through them. And if we don't get to them, I will leave my contact details and everything, and you can give me a shout. So let me just share my screen. She says that's the one I want. God, why are kids so noisy? That's not the one I want. Hold on. That's the one I want. Can everybody see that all right? Below. Right, let me see if I can see the chat box. Brilliant. So Paul's put in there. So do, like I said, just chat, comment. We'll try and make it as relatively interactive as we can. A very brief intro to me. Oh, come on. I always start off by saying I'm an ordinary knackered mum of 2, just because I feel like sometimes we think we have to be Greta or David Attenborough or, I don't know, Boris Johnson to make a difference. And actually we can all make a difference, no matter how overwhelmed we are, no matter how busy we are, no matter how many plates we're kind of keeping spinning in the air. And my journey into sustainability sort of started, it was 2012, August 2012. I decided randomly we were going to spend a year buying nothing new as a family. And our kids were about 4 and 2 at the time. So they're nearly 13 and 10 now. It was quite a naive decision. I think, I thought we were pretty green. We did our recycling. That was kind of it as far as I was concerned. I thought, that box ticked, and really what else could we possibly do? And I hadn't joined the dots between sort of what we were buying and what we were throwing away, between what we were buying and the impact that it was having on the planet. I didn't really sort of, know about fast fashion, or if I did, I kind of assumed that it must be okay. It must be okay for them to sell 2 t-shirts for £5, because otherwise they wouldn't be allowed to do it, would they? Surely. And that year really sort of forced me, I think, to sort of confront our consumption. And we weren't massive shoppers. It wasn't, I see some families and their sort of Saturday day out is to go shopping and go to the shops, and we weren't like that, but we were quite thoughtless shoppers. We only really thought about what we wanted or what we needed in terms of where we might be able to get it cheapest, or if there was a sale on or anything like that. And that year really sort of forced me to confront that, and to confront this idea that, what we do has an impact. There's that lovely Jane Goodall quote about, what we do makes a difference. What we do makes a difference, and we have to decide what kind of difference we want to make. And also this idea that, even as just one family, as just one person, that we absolutely can and could make a difference. And I ended the year with this sort of feeling of personal responsibility, almost, that when we could make better choices, that I then felt, and still do, a sort of this personal responsibility to try and make better choices more of the time. So during that year, I'd kept a blog about the year and blogged every day about it, which I think was by far the hardest thing, was doing a blog every day with 2 preschoolers at home. And from that sort of rediscovered, I used to be a vet, so I'd done sciences at A-levels and all that kind of thing, and forgotten about writing and creativity and all these things, and discovered, rediscovered this love of writing, discovered this online community, and now it's grown. And there's probably on different platforms over sort of 60,000 people. And it's all around this idea of taking imperfect eco action. And as Kate said, last year I founded a membership club called the Knackered Mums Eco Club. And that was born out of, I guess, a bit of a frustration in that I wasn't seeing necessarily a place for me or for people like me in the sort of green space. There's lots and lots of different stereotypes, aren't there? And some of those stereotypes, I think, put a lot of us off maybe getting started, because we feel like we've got to be Greta or David, or we're going to be labelled, a mung bean eating bunny hugger, whatever Boris likes to call eco activists, and sort of seeing all these parents at the school gates and in the playground who I, felt like if I went up and was brave enough to have a conversation with them around the climate, would probably be a bit worried, but wouldn't really know where to do, what to do, where to go, what to do, probably doubting that they could make a difference. And I wanted to provide this sort of space where people could come and could, be imperfect, be knackered, be, making compromises, because it's hard work trying to bring up kids at the best of times. So that was the sort of reasoning behind that. And then, as Kate said, I'm lucky enough to have had 2 books published, the Sustainable-ish Living Guide and the Sustainable-ish Guide to Green Parenting. And the idea behind both of them is that they are very accessible. We wanted them, they're published with Bloomsbury, and my editor Charlotte at Bloomsbury, we both spoke about wanting them to be sort of mainstream, or as mainstream as a sustainability book can be, and that it's very non-judgmental, very non-preachy. You're not going to pick it up and be made to feel guilty, and that's kind of the whole ethos, I think, of everything that I do. So because we're going to talk about parenting, let's just address the big elephant in the room, that apparently the biggest impact thing we can do to reduce our individual contribution to climate change is to have one, and I'm never sure of the grammar, they've said one fewer child. I don't know if it's less chill. I don't know the grammar. Have one fewer child. I'm going to go with what they've said. Now, I always find that one really difficult, because I kind of think, well, what does that mean? Does that mean if I wanted 2, I just have 1? Like if we were going to have 1, we don't have any. I've got 2. Do I have to pick which one I send back? I don't, depending on how annoying they're being, I don't really understand how that works. And yes, undoubtedly, having a child is probably the highest impact thing we can do. But interestingly, I don't know if anybody's read Mike Berners-Lee's book, How Bad Are Bananas? And he talks about it in there. And he talks about this idea that actually, more than the number of children we have, it's the lifestyle that we bring them up in. So actually, if we're here on a parenting talk, it's fair to assume that we've probably, had children or are planning to have children. And very much what will really have a significant impact on that, on that decision is how we bring those children up and how those children then go on and live their lives. And obviously, once they reach a certain age, that's kind of out of our hands. But and I'm also reading a great book at the moment. I'm sort of partway through it, that came out recently, called The Day the World Stops Shopping. And in there, he talks about this idea that actually consumption has overtaken population as the sort of biggest climate issue. And yes, population is an issue, but actually it's the levels of consumption that come with it. Having a child in the developed Western world, say in America, is the equivalent to having 13 children in, say, Bangladesh or somewhere like that. So actually how we bring up our children, having made the decision to have them, is really, really, really important. And that's what we're going to talk about, because it's a very emotional argument, this one about having children versus not having children, and no one's here to criticize you or to have a go at you for the decisions that we've made. It's all about, okay, like we've got these wonderful, amazing children, and we really want to do the best that we can by them and for them, and to, everything that we can to create them a clean and green world. So this idea of sustainable-ish, I've sort of mentioned it several times, and it's a made-up word. And the idea is, for me, is that it's all about making the best choices that we can, that work for us, that work for our family, and that ideally work for the planet. And they're not going to be the same for all of us, because we're all starting from different places. We've all got different challenges and different circumstances. You know, my amazing might be somebody else's meh, and the other way around, and that's okay. And especially I think when we've got kids and we're trying to get the rest of the family on board and bring them along, you know, there is going to be a degree of compromise. There is going to, you know, this idea that no change is too small. The whole time we're aiming for progress and not perfection, and we're focusing on the things that we can change and not the things that we can't, because some of those big, you know, some of the changes need, you know, big system changes or need policy shifts and that kind of thing. And yes, we can absolutely make our voices heard in encouraging those things to happen, but let's focus on, because there's lots of nice, I say easy, but much easier stuff that we can do. You know, when you say to kids, can you just be quiet just for an hour? And then no, they're the loudest they've ever been. So the reason I've put these two little pictures here is that I think a lot of people feel like sustainability or green living or whatever you want to call it is this sort of hierarchy, this very linear journey from dipping your toes in at the start, very pale green, just, and you know, you're working your way up in a very linear fashion to peak green, to knitting your own yogurt, living off grid, whatever. And to a lot of people, that's not where they want to be. That's not particularly aspirational. And it puts them off even kind of starting thinking, well, oh God, if I say I'm trying to be a bit more eco, they're going to slam me because we've got 2 cars and we're not vegan. And, you know, but actually that's, you know, it doesn't matter. I think there's an awful lot of judgment that goes on in the sort of eco space, either, and a lot of fear of judgment, either of fearing of being judged and being found wanting, or fear of other, you know, thinking, oh God, they're going to think I'm judging them. You know, I've done this before. I've been in the playground and people have sort of hidden plastic bags behind their back and that sort of thing, as they see me walking over, and I'm not going to tell anyone off. I'm not the plastic bag police. And I think that, you know, sustainability or sustainable living or whatever you want to call it is much more like this lower picture, where it's this messy splodge of green, where we're different shades of green in different areas of our life, when it's lockdown, when it's not lockdown, when we're homeschooling, when we're not homeschooling, when it's the summer holidays, you know, and that's absolutely fine. And you know, we will move in and out of those different shades of green depending on all sorts of things, including how irritating the children are being. So, you know, imperfection, absolutely. And this idea that imperfect action beats perfect action, or beats no action, actually, every single time. So I was sort of thinking about how to sort of put together this talk or this session, because it's really difficult. You know, sustainability is everything, and parenting can go from, you know, we're thinking about having a baby through to, you know, my kids are just starting university. So how can we kind of encompass all of that in 60 minutes? So this I'm sort of basing it on this hierarchy of needs by an amazing woman. She's absolutely brilliant, called Sarah Lazarovich. She's Canadian, and it's this. I always say, if I was brave enough to get a tattoo, this would be it, but I'm not. So and she's based it, you know, on sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, with the idea that we're starting at the bottom and we're working our way up. So what I thought we would do is we would work our way through those little segments, because the whole crux, I guess, of sustainability is kind of consuming less. Do you know, like we can dress it up in all kinds of fancy things, but if we need to consume less energy, we need to consume less food, we need to waste less food, we need to consume less meat and dairy, we need to consume less tech, we need to consume less stuff. When I was researching book number 1, there was a study I found, and it said that over 60% of all global greenhouse gas emissions are a result of household consumption. And I really had to, like, I had to double check that. I went and found the source, all that kind of thing. And it's quite shocking, but also quite empowering in that, okay, this is the stuff that we are buying. This is the food that we're eating. This is how we're traveling. This is the stuff we're bringing into our homes. And therefore it stands to reason that we have some control over that. So if we can, you know, if we can personally reduce our consumption, then, you know, we can, and we all did a little bit, we can reduce greenhouse gases emissions by quite a lot. Be really interesting to know what sort of age kids people have got, and then it might, just in the examples that I'm giving, it might help me to sort of tailor them a little bit. So just pop into the chat how old your kids, grandkids, cousins, nephews, nieces, whatever they are. Brilliant. 9 and 12, perfect. 6 and nearly 10, great. So 4, fabulous. All right. So I'm just going to work through it. I will try and come up with some examples that kind of fit. 5 and 7, 5 due in a month. Oh, Leanne, how exciting. Right, brilliant. So we're going to start off with use what you have. So I interviewed Sarah for my podcast and was sort of talking to her about this. And she said, you know, this sort of use what you have for her encompasses repair, encompasses upcycling, encompasses rummaging around in the kitchen for the drawer of doom, you know, for the packet of batteries that you kind of know are probably in there, but oh God, if you start looking in the drawer of doom, you're going to feel guilty about all the crap that's in there and then have to tidy it away, and, you know, all that kind of thing. So it's and this whole thing about, you know, the most sustainable version of anything is the one we've already got. And that's very countercultural. This whole hierarchy is very countercultural. We live in a very consumer society. We are told that, you know, buying X, Y, or Z will make us happier, more popular, look younger, live longer, whatever it might be. And, you know, we are constantly bombarded with all these messages to buy. I mean, it was the anniversary, wasn't it, of 9/11, and, you know, days after 9/11, George Bush was there telling American people it was their duty, their sort of civil duty, to go out and to sort of kickstart the economy. Boris said the same during, you know, when we were sort of starting to unlock from coronavirus. It was like, get out there and shop for the country. So actually this idea of slowing down our consumption is really difficult and really so if you find it difficult, don't worry, is the first thing to say. And, you know, in regards to using what you have, I think parenting is probably the ultimate. You know, like if we start a new job, we go and buy a new outfit. If we start a new hobby, we go and get all the new things. So we say we want to be more sustainable, and we're like, oh, what do I need to buy? I need the mug, I need the tote bag, I need the special lunchbox, I need the Kilner jars because I've seen them on Instagram. But actually, you know, it comes down to using what we have. And again, with parenting, I mean, God, we're on the ultimate guilt trip, aren't we? Like we want the best for our precious new lives, especially when we're pregnant or we're expecting, and, you know, when they're tiny, and we want our kids to have the same as other kids have got as they get older, and they start to notice what other children have got and where other children are going on holiday and all those kinds of things. But you know, and there's a whole maternity and baby and parenting industry. So the reason I've put the bag there is, you know, we're so, oh God, you got to get a changing bag, you'll get a changing bag, and it might say yummy mummy on it, or, you know, whatever. We've probably all got a rucksack, haven't we? We've all got a rucksack with some pockets, which is what I love. Use a rucksack for a changing bag. Use your, you know, wear your stretchy leggings for as long as you can while you're pregnant, because I guarantee you, as soon as you start buying your maternity stuff, you're going to be bored to hell of wearing it, you know, because you're going to be wearing it for longer than you expected. So this whole idea that we're just having a look around, and just because it doesn't say baby or child or whatever, that we're using what we have in our homes, and maybe what other people have got as well. So I'm loving that all these things about repair cafes and community hubs and all that kind of thing. So yeah, before rushing out and buying something, have a little look, have a see. I mean, my mother-in-law is just like, she keeps everything. So she's got, like, you know, we're like, oh, have you got one of these? Yeah. So she's got like my husband's old exercise books, my husband's old pencil case, all those kinds of things. So you know, some people call it hoarding. I don't know, there's a fine line, isn't there, between kind of hoarding and being eco-friendly. So if we move up a level, we're looking at borrowing, and obviously you can borrow, you know, I mean, I remember when I was little, you know, borrowing things, if you've timed it right and you've got friends whose kids are like, I don't know, 6 months or a year older than yours, or you managed to get in between their two kids, you could probably borrow, you know, the Moses basket, the buggy, the loads of different things. So always ask, you know, if you're looking for something, always ask first if somebody's got something that you can borrow. But actually there's these more and more of the sort of sharing economy and these more formal, borrowing opportunities that are growing. Now I'm going to throw a load of different names and organizations and links at you, but don't panic, because I'll put them all together in a Word doc and I will send it to Kate and she can circulate it for you, so you're not all kind of having to scribble it down. So there's Bundle and Joy. They do like maternity wear, so you can sort of borrow or rent your maternity wear. The next one along with the orange circle is called the Little Loop, and they do clothes rental for kids. I think it was up to about sort of 4. I'm sure I saw a post recently saying they're expanding and they're doing older kids as well. So the idea is that you pay a monthly subscription, and they have all kinds of gorgeous clothes on there, like Frugy and all these gorgeous, lovely organic brands that maybe you'd sort of balk a little bit at paying that much when you think your child's going to grow out of it or trash it or whatever. But the beauty is that you can have it for as long as they fit it, and then you can send it back and you can get the next thing up. Not only kind of helps to keep these outfits and these resources in use, but also it saves you that kind of like, oh, you know, sorting out all the drawers of clothes and like, oh God, they've grown out of this. Now what do I do with this? And having to go and do an NCT sale or, you know, try and sell it all at a car boot or whatever like that. So it's kind of saving a lot of time and storage space as well. I need to change this slide actually, because the little funny G was an organization called Buggy, and they did a buggy rental, which I just thought was genius and a brilliant idea, but they don't seem, I don't know if it was coronavirus or what, but they don't seem to be sort of running anymore. But if anybody wants a business idea, buggy rental would be amazing. Whirly is an organization, a business that does toy rental. They go from literally like 0 up to about 10. My kids have just grown out of it. But again, you pay a monthly subscription and you can get all kinds of stuff on there. So you know, everything from baby rattles, baby gyms, those massive, annoying, noisy jumperoo things that you kind of feel obliged that you have to have because everyone has them and they drive you insane and they only use them for about 2 months. They got them on there. They've got balance bikes. They've got, like, I've got boys, so they've got Nerf guns. They had loads of outdoor stuff for the summer, that kind of thing. So I think that kind of thing is a brilliant suggestion for grandparents when they're saying, what do they want for Christmas? They don't want anything for Christmas. My house looks like John Lewis, like I can't, you know, where am I going to put any more stuff? Oh my God, yeah, this is amazing, because they get new to them toys every month. You know, and then the grandparent or whoever is still getting that feeling that they're giving them stuff and they're getting all the excitement of opening it. So that's a great thing. There are more and more libraries of things or share shops opening up. Have you guys got one near you, or any plans to open one? So Kate, we've got some sort of so I'm just up the road from Frome in Somerset. Frome had the first share shop in the country, and there's the Library of Things in London, which is sort of trying to almost build a kind of franchise model, I think, and spread out. But lots of sustainable and transition groups have got their own kind of library of things, and just the idea that you can come and you can just borrow the things that you need. In Edinburgh, there's an amazing Edinburgh Tool Library. You can go and you can borrow the tools that you need. So in Frome, they've got tents for when it's festival season. They've got if you've got grandchildren coming to visit, they've got car seats, they've got high chairs, they've got bike seats, they've got pretty much anything that you might need, and you can borrow it. And then, because this whole idea is that we don't need to own, not everybody needs to own one of everything. Apparently the average drill only gets used for 13 minutes in its lifetime. So actually, we just need to have access to these things rather than owning these things. Kidda is a website run by a lady called Claire, and it's is somebody mute? And it's for passing on sort of kids' sports stuff, kids' hobby stuff, music stuff, that kind of thing. Because if you've got kids, you'll know that they're like, I want to do football, and then you've got to buy the boots and the shin pads and the kit, and and then 6 months later they don't want to do football anymore. So it's trying to make it cheaper for parents and keep all this stuff out of landfill. The little one with the bike is called the Bike Club, and again, you can rent bikes. So we had a situation where my son was sort of almost in between 2 sizes of bikes, and so we were like, well, does it make sense for us to rent one for a little bit, so that while he grows into the next size. So again, you can take out a monthly subscription, and again, I think they have everything from balance bikes upwards. If you've got little ones, then have a look, see if you've got a nappy library near you. So these are great for just great to be able to go and speak to someone. Like, reusable nappies are, I think, quite daunting as a new parent and as someone who hasn't done them before. So with nappy libraries, you can go and you can speak to someone who can talk you through all the different things. They can give you a bundle to borrow and to see how you get on with. They can talk to you about the washing, all that kind of thing. So have a look. There's a network of them all around the country. The same applies for slings. If you've got little ones as well, you might find that you've got a sling library near you. Often your local NCT might be able to help you. So, rather than having to sort of take a deep breath and buy all these things, not knowing that they're the right one, you might be able to borrow some different ones. And then you might see if you've got a toy library near you. I think a lot of the old Sure Start centres had them, but obviously a lot of them ran out of their funding. But this is something that, I'm going to say, it's been relatively easy to set up. I don't know if it would be relatively easy to set up. There's probably all sorts of insurance implications and all sorts of complicated things. But, you know, again, I think there might be one in Frome as well. And, you know, you can, it's just a way of keeping toys in use and making our houses hopefully look a bit less like a kind of, you know, a toy store. So loads of ideas there for borrowing. If you've got other ideas for things that you know of, or if any of you are thinking, oh, this might be a great thing for Ryedale Environmental Group to do, then you can, I'm sure there'd be some great ideas coming out of it. But, you know, this whole idea that we're borrowing the stuff rather than buying it. Can you swap things? So when mine were little and we're at toddler group, you know, we had a toy swap. We only did it as a one-off, but we could easily have done one a term or one a month or whatever. And especially in the run up to Christmas, you know, can you just get everyone to have a bit of a clear out? I would usually say put it somewhere where the kids can't, you know, won't really see it, because they will inevitably go and grab their own toys back again, and they will be the toys that they could, you know, never part with, having not played with them for a good year. But, you know, can you do something like that? Can you do Christmas? I'm already thinking Christmas. Can you do a Christmas jumper swap, especially for the kids' jumpers, because they grow out of them, don't they? Can you do a nativity costume swap at your school? Can you do, you know, you could just get together with some friends and do a stocking filler type swap. You know, we've all got that sort of plastic tat hanging around that was exciting to open, but they're not gonna, you know, they're not playing with it anymore. So that kind of thing. Clothes swaps. I've organised a few clothes swaps local to us, and they're brilliant events because people come to them who wouldn't necessarily come to a green event. They come to them because it's a night out, it's a bit of a social. We did it down the pub. You know, they let us have the skittle alley. Just need some, you know, some clothes racks, ideally a bit of, you know, somewhere you can cordon off people to go and get changed, to try things on, and a mirror and that sort of thing. But it's a really nice social event as well. And again, it allows you to very gently sort of introduce this idea and have these gentle conversations about fast fashion, about kind of overconsumption, about the fact that, oh, look, you know, we've just been able to swap these clothes. And did you know this is the amount of clothes that go to landfill every year? All of those kinds of things, and just have these very gentle conversations. So, you know, they're a great thing to do. And like I said, especially with kids stuff when they're all growing out of it so quickly. Thrifting, so it's kind of American or Canadian for buying secondhand. So, you know, we're all aware of kind of the charity shops. Just to be really aware, if you are having a bit of a clear out, like I said, you know, the kids have gone up an age group in clothes or whatever, the charity shops can only sell on stuff that's in decent condition, that is clean, that doesn't need mending, you know, especially when it comes to toys. I think they often need that European CE mark. So I think sometimes we just need to be a little bit careful that we don't use the charity shops almost as a sort of panacea for us to continue over consuming. Well, it's okay because I'm giving it to the charity shop, because sometimes we might just be passing that guilt and that expense onto them to putting things into landfill. And especially when it comes to clothes, only about 10 to 30% of clothes that are donated here in the UK to our charity shops are sold on within the UK. So, you know, if you have got stuff that you want to pass on, or you're looking for stuff, eBay is great, car boot sales are great, jumble sales are great. I was chatting to someone the other day, and their village were doing a jumble trail. So like there was just a little map of people who were taking part, and everybody on that day had tables out, you know, around the village or around the street or whatever it was, and did this lovely jumble trail all around. There's I'm assuming you guys will have a free cycle or a Freegal group near you. I think most places do, and these are brilliant online communities where you can you know, pass on stuff that you no longer want, or you can ask for stuff. I always say it's great for things like, you know, the big sack of dog food that the dog liked, and then you bought a massive sack and now it doesn't like it, it's turned its nose up at it, or the tin of paint that you opened and it was the wrong colour, that kind of thing. Buy Nothing project is a similar thing to Free Cycle and Freegal, but it's kind of run on on Facebook groups, and it started in America and it's spread around the globe, and it talks about this idea of hyper local gifting communities they talk about, which is very American sounding, isn't it? But this idea that it's also helping you to connect, you know, by distributing your stuff, it's helping you to connect with people in your community, and you can share skills and all kinds of things in there as well. So I think that's a really lovely thing to do. The big D thing there is if you've got teenagers, sorry, I'm just moving my watch so I've got an idea of time. If you've got teenagers, there's an app called Depop. which is all, it looks a bit like Instagram, but everybody is wearing clothes that are for sale. It makes me feel horrendously old if I ever go on there, because it just, but there's another one maybe more for the parents, called Vinted, which is a great app for secondhand clothes and things. If you have got teenagers, it is really difficult, because this is part of their, especially I think if you've got girls, it seems to be the thing they do on a Saturday afternoon. So trying to have these gentle conversations with them about the impact of fashion. There's a great documentary called The True Cost. It's a little bit old now. I think it came out maybe 2012, but that's a great one if they can sit down and watch that with you. There's an app called Good On You, and you can download it on your phone or their phone. And if they say, oh, I really want, I don't even know what teenagers like now, Nike or whatever, you can look and you can see how well that brand performs on this Good On You app in terms of their ethics and their sustainability. So again, that's quite a nice way to start having a gentle conversation with them about the impact of their choices. Olio, I don't know, do you guys have an Olio group near you, and whether how active or otherwise it is? Olio is another app. It started off as a food waste app, and now that it's sort of expanded so that you can list, and again, you can list anything on there, and it connects you up with people locally to sort of give away the things that you no longer want or need. And then Pure Bundle, I'd have to have a check. I think, again, they've had a bit of a pause, and I'm hoping they're going to restart, but they were an organisation that did, they'd put together like bundles of secondhand clothes for, I don't know, like 2 to 3 year old girls in a particular style or aesthetic or whatever. And I just thought it was the most amazing idea, and I really wanted them to do a grown-up version, because I try and buy clothes secondhand and end up with all this mismatched stuff that doesn't really go together. I was like, could somebody curate me a capsule wardrobe in my style, and I will pay you for it secondhand. But that was the idea of that, and I think, like I said, I'm hoping that they are sort of going to start up again. So there are some things that you shouldn't buy secondhand. So probably we've all heard about, cot mattresses, Moses basket mattresses. The recommendation is that there is some thoughts that secondhand that can increase the risk of sudden infant death syndrome or cot death. So the recommendation is always that you buy them brand new and for each child. Car seats, again, because they have the sort of foam in them, and you can't really tell if they've got cracks and things in them. So you should always buy them brand new, and to make sure that you can fit them properly and that sort of thing. If you are, getting car seats secondhand, being passed down through the family or something like that, obviously you just need to know the history of it and know that it's not been in any accidents and things like that. Another business idea, needs to set up a car seat recycling scheme, because if all these car seats are going into landfill, that is a huge volume of resources and things that are there. So I really wish, I've done a lot of searching to see if there is a car seat recycling scheme, and not come up with anything at the moment. So again, if somebody wants a business idea, they can run with that. And bike helmets, again, for that same reason as the car seats, if they've had a knock, if they've had a bang, they can have sort of cracks in them that mean that they don't work quite as well. So just be a little bit sensible, be a little bit aware of when you are looking for things secondhand. So making, I always feel like, oh God, I almost have to apologise for putting that in here, especially when I'm talking to parents and I'm talking to time poor parents, because, who as a parent has time to do anything? This picture is a picture from when we did our year buying nothing new, and I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to make the kids something for Christmas. And I'd, not long learned to sew. And I decided I'd been on Pinterest, decided I was going to make them these amazing dinosaur hats. So kind of surreptitiously managed to measure their heads. I don't know how I managed that. Excitedly made this hat, and it was the only thing it would fit was one of their teddy bears. So it can be quite frustrating, because you can spend an awful lot of time and effort making something that is then actually pretty rubbish. But I always say it doesn't have to be like some mad crazy skill thing. So like kids' birthday parties are just a nightmare when your kid gets invited to it. And if it's an all class party and there's 30 kids and there's this massive stash of presents lined up, and you just think, oh God. So what I will tend to do is I will make some giant chocolate buttons. So just literally melt a 100-gram bar of chocolate. Fair trade chocolate gets you extra brownie points. Smoosh it onto a baking, onto a baking sheet into sort of, large roundish buttons. If I've got some sprinkles, I'll chuck them on, leave it to set, whack them in a jar with an old jam jar with a bow. The kids absolutely love them. They're always really, really popular. The other thing I will do if I've got a bit more time is make some, I quite like baking, so I will make shortbread biscuits and cut them into the sizes, like into numbers. I've got number cutters, so number 6s or number 8s or whatever. And I do feel awkward. I've never been brave enough to sort of bounce up to parents afterwards and say, oh, you know, did you think I was a real weirdo giving those instead of buying a present? But actually, I think probably, well, I like to think that most parents are kind of grateful that it's not another present that they've got to find hair stream for. And it is something that the kids tend to quite enjoy. So then at the last, you know, the top bit of our hierarchy here is buy. And it's not saying, you know, never buy anything new again. But this quote really kind of struck home for me, this idea that every time we spend money, we're casting a vote for the kind of world that we want. So I absolutely get that the ease, the lure, the convenience of Amazon, they have made it incredibly easy for us to buy, haven't they? And so nobody's saying, you know, never use Amazon again, although it is entirely doable. But maybe you could say, okay, I'm going to cut my Amazon habit by 50%, or I know a few people in my membership are going to try and do an Amazon free Christmas, do you know? So thinking about actually, so instead of Amazon or wherever being your first resort, it's your sort of your last port of call almost, so that you're thinking about this hierarchy, you're working your way up, or you're thinking, okay, so is there an independent local shop that I can use, that I can support, that I know, you know, it's not just paying for Jeff Bezos to take off into space, it's actually helping them pay their mortgage, put food on the plate, so all that kind of thing. So thinking about this idea that actually our consumer choices are really, really powerful, and that we almost get to well, we get to choose who we give our money to, and oftentimes our decisions are made on time or budget or whatever, but there are times when we might have a bit more space to stop and to think, and on those occasions can we make some different choices. So just some ideas for the last sort of 10 minutes to how we get everyone on board, because it's all very well. And I always say, you know, if it was just me, I'd probably be pretty hardcore, you know, like, well, I like to, you know, I'd probably be a lot more plant-based. I would ideally cycle a lot more. We probably wouldn't have crisps, you know, all these things. But actually, it's not just me. And I've got a husband and 2 kids and a dog. And, you know, sometimes it can be difficult, to put it mildly, to get other people on board. Now, kids generally, I would say primary school age kids, they get it, they understand it. They're very, you know, this right and wrong, isn't it? Like, this is wrong. Why are we doing this? But sometimes they don't. And this is exactly the same with grown-ups. We're not joining the dots between the things that we're doing and the things that we say we don't like ocean pollution or whatever. So thinking about how we can get the kids on board, how we can encourage them to actually do practical stuff. So meet them where they are. Like my kids, like I said, they're nearly 13 and they're 10. They're not that bothered. Do you know, like I sort of thought they'd be like little mini Gretas and they'd be organizing local school strikes and all this sort of thing. They're not, they're really not that bothered. And so I think it's quite important that I don't make this their issue when they're not there yet, or they may not be there at all. You know, it's a very precious, you know, childhood is very precious, and the last thing we need to be doing is projecting our own anxieties and fears and worries onto them, when they might not be sort of thinking in that way. And also, you know, make sure that the stuff, the things that we're talking about are kind of age appropriate. Really nurture a love of nature, and you can do this right from when they're little. And as frustrating as and annoying as it is, as, you know, going on a walk with a toddler and them stopping to look at everything, do you know, kind of maybe we just need to see it as a exercise in mindfulness some of the time. You know, sometimes we just need to get somewhere. There's a great app called Seek from World Wildlife Fund that really transformed our kind of lockdown walks. You get it and you can take pictures of the plants, the bugs, the animals, the things that you see, and it will identify them for you. You know, and it was just a really lovely way to feel like you kind of knew something. What's that, mummy? Don't know. You know, and you can go and kind of, or you can say to them, we'll take a picture, let's go and we can see what it is. So pointing out the changes in the seasons, all those kinds of things, the bugs that you see, talking about how important worms are, all that kind of thing. Really, really important, because we protect what we love, don't we? Keep things local and relatable, especially for, you know, I would say primary school and below. It's climate change is a big, enormous thing for us to grasp as grown-ups. It's very difficult to think, oh, you know, it's not, I always say we don't turn our lights off and get a selfie with a thumbs up from a polar bear because he's got a bit more ice to stand on. So it's really difficult to see those causes and effects. So actually keep things really local, talk about, if you see rubbish in the river as you're walking along, or you see rubbish in the park, litter's a great thing to talk about. So I've got a picture there of my son, we've done a litter pick. Very good, very easy to see the tangible difference, and very easy to kind of see the cause and effect. You can be doing a litter pick and going, oh, look, we use these sometimes, don't we? Do you think there's anything else we could use instead? Because, maybe our litter might be contributing to this problem, all those kinds of things. So that the more tangible and touchable you can make it, the better. Really focus on action. And this applies to adults as much as it does to kids. This cliche maybe, but it's still true that, action is the antidote to anxiety. So when we start to feel anxious, worried, scared, let's just do something. So let's focus on the things that we can do. So that's why litter picking is such a great thing. That's why, saying to them, well, why don't you ask school if they can set up a green team? Or, what are the things that you can actually physically do that they can see a difference, that they feel like they're making a difference? Talking of sort of, school green teams and things, there's a brilliant organisation called Eco Schools, which I would, do if your school aren't already an eco school, maybe encourage them to have a little look at. And they talk in there about having an eco committee of pupils, but also this idea that maybe, and I have to confess, we haven't done this, but if you're a better parent than me, you could form a family eco committee and go, look, guys, I'm really worried about the climate crisis, and I would love for us to do some things as a family. What are the things that we're already doing really well? What are the things that we maybe want to do a little bit better? So that the whole point is you're trying to get buy-in from them, rather than you being the big bad, baddie who's like, we're not allowed fruit shoots and we're not allowed crisps and we're not allowed this, that you're trying to get some sort of buy-in and some ownership from them at the same time, and the theory that it might make it a bit easier. I would say the hardest thing in my experience is probably getting other halves or partners on board. And certainly from, talking to people in the Knackered Mums Eco Club, it's often like, my husband, really doesn't want to go vegetarian, or doesn't want to do this, or doesn't want to do that. So sometimes it's trying to work to get our partners on board as well. So talk to them. I'm really guilty of assuming that my partner is privy to my inner monologue, and thank God he's not. But, this idea that, I sort of was like, oh yeah, we're going to start TerraCycling all the crisp packets. Didn't tell anyone we were going to TerraCycle all the crisp packets, and then just kept getting annoyed at them for putting them in the bin and not putting them where I designated the TerraCycle crisp collection things. So talk to them, explain your worries, because I think we're still not at a stage yet where we're having these conversations about our concerns, why we're worried, the things that are stressing us out, the things that maybe that we would like to be able to do. Ask them what their concerns are. Ask them why they, what's holding them back. Often it might be that, like, oh God, well, you're already really stressed and time poor, and how are you going to find time to do all this? Or actually, is that going to cost us anymore? And things like that. Find out what their objections are. Look at that. Be prepared to compromise, and this goes with the kids as well. I always talk about cycling to school. The school my little one was at was about 3 miles away. We could quite easily cycle it, but he was absolutely adamant he didn't want to cycle, and I just couldn't bear the arguments. So what in the end what I did was we've got a trailer that goes on the back of the car that bikes can go on to transport them. So I would drive him to school, drop him off, cycle home, cycle back again, and then drive him back again. So that was reducing my school run by 50% in the car. Not perfect, but actually, it was imperfect action. It was better than nothing. So again, be prepared to compromise. Things like meat seem to be a real stumbling block sometimes with other halves. So can you instead of doing a veggie spag bowl, can you just do it with 50%, half as much meat, and bulk up with some vegetables or some lentils or something like that, and just, step by step. Choose your battles. It's not worth having arguments over every little thing. So pick the things that are maybe going to give you your biggest return, or you think are going to be easiest or whatever, and just pick your battles so life isn't one long argument. And sometimes it just comes down to showing, not telling, just getting on and making the changes that you can, that you don't maybe need their buy-in for, all that kind of thing. And then sort of realizing that actually it hasn't been harder, more expensive, less enjoyable, whatever. And slowly the idea is that they will come round to it. Sometimes, especially when it comes to things like Christmas and stuff, getting the wider family on board can be really difficult because, bear in mind, they might not have seen you for a year. And last time you did Christmas, you might have been quite up for, you know, big lots of presents and lots of glittery wrapping paper and all those kinds of things. So actually sometimes getting the wider family on board with birthdays and Christmas can be quite hard. So go for the low hanging fruit. Sometimes there will be, like, I always think like my sister-in-law is probably one of the easiest people to sort of approach to have this kind of conversation with. So maybe she and I could get together and have a little pact about our kids, and then we'll think about how we can spread that out next year. So share what you're doing and the changes that you're making, you know, whether that's on social media or just sort of dropping it into a conversation. It can be quite difficult to do this without other people feeling attacked, without, you know, them becoming defensive, all those kinds of things. So just, you know, try and make it part of the conversation in the run up to, say, Christmas or something like that, so that it's not suddenly like, oh my God, she's suddenly this eco warrior and I had no idea. Explaining why you're making the changes that you're making. So sometimes it might be easier to talk about plastic rather than climate, because we can see plastic and we can see the rubbish and the waste and that kind of thing. But, you know, maybe, oh, well, you can start off with plastic, or maybe you say we're trying to save money. So actually, you know, and that might be your excuse. It has the same end impact, but sometimes that can be an easier thing. Be really specific when you're asked, you know, if they say, what does I don't know, Frederica want for Christmas, instead of saying books or Lego, like, this is what she wants. Or you know, give them a list of specific books that you know she will read. Give them a list of specific Lego models that you know that she wants. You know, maybe you want to get so, you know, a couple of bits of really nice organic sustainable clothing. Well, that's a really lovely, you know, gift idea, that kind of thing. Be really specific about what it is that you want. And again, this whole idea of, you know, show, don't tell. So maybe you give your gifts this year and they're wrapped in, I don't know, brown paper that the kids have decorated, or you swap out sellotape for paper tape, or you, you know, you buy the non-glittery Christmas cards, or, you know, the whole time you're just sort of doing these little things, and you can maybe use those as little jump off points for conversations. Just a quick thing of some books. If people are looking for books for the kids, the Wild Tribes Heroes series, the 4 up there are gorgeous, by Ellie Jackson, who lives down in Cornwall. Just lovely, again, really nice, gentle stories that introduce these things and act as a sort of jumping off point for conversations around things that you can do. Jess French does a fabulous series of books. This is just one of hers. Martin Dorey founded 2 Minute Beach Clean, which is a you know, an organisation that does a lot around beach cleaning and litter and rubbish. And his 2 books, Kids Fight Plastic and Kids Fight Climate Change, are very, very good. Dougie Pointer's apparently in a boy band. I can never remember which one, but that might be good for your sort of slightly older children. But yeah, there's loads of different books out there. You know, do have a little look, and books can be a great way of, again, just having these, you know, reading a book, having a little conversation about it. So my invitation now is for you guys to come up with an action, come up with something that you're going to do as a result of this, because, you know, hopefully the idea with everything this week, with all of the sessions and things that were on this week, is that we're going to change something, because nothing changes if nothing changes. So it's great to come on and spend an evening together and maybe, you know, have your other half putting the kids to bed or whatever it is, but actually we now need stuff to change as a result of it. So I would really love if anyone wants to be brave and pop into the chat something that they're going to try, a conversation that they're going to have, something that they're going to do a little bit differently as a result, because it makes me feel good if I'm honest, if people do that. So there's all my contact details. I think somebody's asked if they can get the slides. So yeah, again, I can send them to Kate, and she can send them out to you, and all my contact details are on there. But, you know, just to finish this idea that no one is too small to make a difference. Everyone can do something. And like I said, it doesn't matter how small, it doesn't matter how imperfect. And if we all did something, then huge differences can happen. So let me stop sharing. Oh, there's loads of chat. I love it when there's lots of chat. If you've got any questions, any specific questions, whack them in the bottom now. So Gillian's going to find out what to do with the cot bed mattress. Kate, did you want to pick out some questions for me? Or did
we just had a few. We've had lots and lots of chat and some great ideas, people sharing what they do, lots of links. I know that sometimes, well, I don't know if it's just